I'm making this video for those people who are thinking about or in the restaurant business and they're thinking about building a new restaurant location. And my name is John. I'm a general contractor in New York City, and I predominantly do build restaurants in the city. So I just want to put this video together to give you some insight to help you with your own build. So that's the reason for this video. First off, I want to say building a restaurant from scratch is very expensive, and if you're thinking about starting your own restaurant, I would recommend that you move into a restaurant that it's already built, and you basically you don't have to do anything. You might, change the interior dining area, but the kitchen is, from the existing restaurant. That's if it's your first one, because to build one from scratch, it's very difficult. So if you're getting your feet wet and starting a new restaurant, you're better off going to an existing restaurant and make some modifications, but that's my first point. And you can, if you have to change the cooking equipment in New York City, you can get what's called an LAA, limited alteration application, I think. And it basically means you don't need an engineer to submit drawings. All you need is a licensed plumber to submit an application. That's if you want to change the cooking equipment under the hood. So it's not in depth. It's not like a full permit that you have to hire an engineer or an architect. You just have to get a licensed plumber to make that application. And that way, you can move into an existing restaurant with little to no cost. So this video is more tips on a full build. So it's probably going to be your second restaurant at least, right, that you're expanding. Okay. Bear with me, I have a few notes. I have a lot to get through, so I want to make this as in-depth as possible. Like I said, I'm a general contractor in New York City. I'm going through all the past notes. So, I guess the best way to start is I'm going to draw the dynamic, write down all the different parties involved with a construction project, a new restaurant project, and we will go from there. project. You're the most important part. If you can believe that or not. So, number one, we got architect. We got the landlord. Kitchen. Equipment. Contractor. Or vendor. General contractor. Expediter. I guess. Let's put expediter over here. Sounds all right. Got the DOB. Also FDNY. Fire department. Third party. Inspector. With the architect, you got an MEP engineer. You also have other things like the liquor authority, health department. Not really a big deal right now. Okay, so starting here, number one thing you need to do is to pick an architect. Obviously, when it comes to selecting anybody here, I mean, as far as the general contractor and the architect, it's down to you. You have to make that selection. So for the architect, I would shop around and, talk to a variety of architects. I would only choose somebody, an architect that works in the business as far as designing restaurants. Don't pick somebody that designed an apartment of a person you know, or your own apartment, or which is most of the architects you meet is people in residential. You have to go with somebody who's experienced with restaurants, because there's so much detail, and there's so much specific knowledge that architects need to know when designing a restaurant, that they need to have experience. So when you're choosing an architect, you look at their portfolio. They have to have restaurants in them, a lot of them. That's number one. They need to be registered architect, RA. they also have MEP engineer that works with them to make the mechanical drawings or designs. So that's PE, professional engineer. Obviously, you got to choose a landlord, which means you're choosing a space. Obviously, you guys know what it takes to choose a space. You know, it comes on a rent or a location. What have I written down for landlord? Yeah, I guess a feasibility study. Especially with the engineer, if you're building a new hood, it needs to, the duct chase needs to go all the way up to the roof level. So you need to find out how you're going to go about that. That's if it's not an existing, there's not an existing hood there already. So when you're choosing a location, you have to somehow get the requirements for the grease duct, number one. Grease duct has to go above the roof line of the building. So wherever your restaurant is, it has to go up through a shaft in the building or a courtyard or on the street side. But somehow that grease duct has to rise all the way up to the top. You also have to put in a grease trap, sanitary. So that's what you need for you have to consider when you're choosing a spot. Also, which is good, is you know, your space. If it's a new space, you have to consider, as part of the lease negotiations, is what's your electrical load going to be? What's your sanitary sizings? It's the drain for all the waste water. What sizing do you need? The size of the gas line you need. The size of the water. Is the space demoed, or are they anticipating you to foot the cost of the demolition of the prior tenant? So you should never sign a lease and then you're stuck with the lease, and then all of a sudden is, you need a new gas service, or you need a new electrical service, you have to demo the old space. If you and you've lost your negotiating power because the lease is signed and you're stuck with the space. So that's something that you have to consider. What are the costs, not within your own space, but outside of the space. That's what before you even start the construction, you have to see, what costs are going to be included. And that way, if you know the costs, and before you negotiate the lease, well, then maybe you can get that lease down, or you have them do that work, as they say, stub in the services. I've done it before, where I've worked for landlords prior to the tenant moving in. You put in the gas line, you put in new electrical service, you put in new sanitary service, everything. You do the demo, you do the asbestos abatement. It's a big one too. So, okay, moving on. All right, that's the landlord. Kitchen equipment contractor, very important too. They're basically the vendor. And you look these people up, or there's a lot of them out there. They supply all the kitchen equipment. And the reason you want to get these guys early is because they have to provide a drawing of the equipment that you work together with them and you specify the equipment. And they give that drawing to the engineer and the architect so they can, along with the existing space, what the parameters of the space are, the perimeter walls, and how the kitchen is going to lay out. So, like all three, the architect, the engineer, and the kitchen equipment contractor or vendor, they're going to make the design of the kitchen, and also you need to order the equipment early nowadays, just to make sure it's ready for when you need it. So again, the kitchen equipment contractors, you just shop around and see who has the best price, So then we're on to what I do, general contractor. You have to pick a general contractor. Again, like the architect, don't pick somebody worked in the apartment building and done an apartment or something like that. You need to work with a contractor that's done a lot of restaurants because it's so specific. It's a very difficult project to complete that not any general contractor can do it. The same as like I said with the architect. So, and your best thing always is to shop around and get a minimum of 3 bids from contractors, 3 different contractors. But all the contractors, you have to make sure that they've done at least 3 or 4 restaurants as part of their portfolio. So that's the general contractor. DOB, I guess FDNY, the architect has to submit to DOB and FDNY. You have to hire a third-party inspector for special inspections. That's probably not relevant right now. I just want to go through a few. Yeah, so in the design process, like a shop drawing is what a vendor or contractor gives you to explain what they're proposing. It's not necessarily an engineer drawing or an architect's drawing. Shop drawing comes from a shop, basically. A bid drawing is what what the architect gives for you to give to the contractors to bid on, and a deal where the architect gives a set to the DOB, so they can have their plan examiner look at it and hopefully approve it and give you a work permit. Okay, so. Yeah, it's the biggest thing with the design is not changing it during the construction project. So don't rush through this with the kitchen equipment guy and the architect. Don't rush through the process to try and get the contractor on board or get the DOB to start the application. If you rush it and you say, "Oh, I'm going to make changes during the construction project," it's a disaster. It's going to cost money. It's going to cost time. Any changes. So try and make the drawings 100% to your satisfaction from the architect, and from the architect before you even give it to the general contractor for bidding. Because if you start changing it after the bidding process, you're gonna extend the bidding process, or if you give them a contract on the old drawings, they're gonna start charging you change orders, which is gonna cost you money and cost you time. So it's very important that you're 100% happy with the kitchen equipment design and the architect's design, and that way you start off on the right foot. And get everybody on board, get all the staff on board, and have a look at the drawings. I know you might be used to looking at drawings, but try and understand it and try to figure out the layout that you're 100% happy with it. It's your best. That's very good advice, because I've done a lot of projects where they change midway through, and they don't expect the cost, they don't expect the time that it takes. So I'm always shocked at that. I guess there's a lot of pressure to try and move the job forward, but anyway. Wash this up. Okay, so we talked about design. So when you have your three contractors, and you finalize the drawings, you have what's called bid drawings. And they go to the GCs, bidding. So what they give you back is they give you a proposal, a bid proposal. And what you have to do with the architect is you have to qualify the bid. In other words, you have to ensure that the bid and its amount is usable, is a number that you can use to put a contract together. So what can happen is, if you pick a bid proposal and they might exclude some work in the proposal, that means you have to pay for that additional cost. Whereas, if you go to another bid, it might be a little bit more, but all the work is included. So I don't know. It's not that easy to qualify a bid, I guess. So I guess what you're looking for is a very detailed proposal. Lots of text in the contractor's proposal. You understand the different trades, which we can go into actually right now. So go into the trades or categories, I guess, of construction. So we got demo, carpentry, electric, plumbing, HVAC, sprinkler. Sprinkler, if the building has sprinkler heads in it, if the space has sprinkler heads in it, then you're going to have to do sprinkler work. If it's a modification. Sometimes if there's no sprinkler in the building, you don't have to do it. Sometimes the city makes you put in new sprinklers, but that's sprinkler. What else? Other finishes, what I call tiling, painting, anything that's at the what you see, like painting on the ceilings or the walls, or tiling on the floors or on the walls. I think they're the most important. General conditions, which is which means the labor to do housekeeping, the garbage debris, that builds up. General contractor has to get rid of it. Has to provide a service to get rid of it, and also a superintendent and project manager. They run, they supervise and execute the project. Basically, that's general conditions. All right. So demo, obviously, demo is if it's an existing space that needs demo to what they call a vanilla box, which means all you're left with is 4 walls that are painted white, which is something similar to what this looks like. Carpentry, it's all the drywall partitions, ceilings, doors. So just getting back to the bidding, they should have all these categories included, and then break out descriptions of what's included. An important term is furnish and install. So sometimes they might say, we're going to furnish and install, like let's say carpentry. That means they're going to buy the sheetrock and the framing, and they're going to install it also. So they're going to furnish it, meaning they're going to buy it, and they're going to install it, meaning they're going to install it. But you got to be careful with certain things. Is they'll say, oh, we're just going to install it, and they'll say owner provides it. So you got to make sure that, you know, if you're comparing bids, that, you know, by right, everything should be furnished and installed. And then if it's excluded that the furnishing is not, usually it's not with carpentry, but with other stuff, you know, some equipment or tiles even, sometimes they exclude the furniture, the tiling. So you have to make sure about this. So install doesn't necessarily mean furnish. So if you see someone saying install, ask them, say, listen, I want to clarify, are you furnishing this also? So that's something you gotta watch out for. And also always read what they've excluded too. At the bottom of the proposal, they'll say, we excluded this, this, and this. And when you're comparing, they call it leveling proposals or qualifying. And that's how you see which guy has what. And ask questions, you know. The more forward, I guess, GCs are about their proposal, the more detail they have in, that's all points to say, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. And also, like I said, he has to have done a couple of restaurants before. Ask him for permits of those restaurants, give him, you know, ask him for the addresses, and look these other restaurants up to make sure that they're legit. I'm writing notes that I know already, so I'm just like reading through them. So yeah, this is why, I mean, as far as knowing this, it's not that easy. Obviously, we're not working in the industry, but you sit down with the architect and you know, put it on, you know, make him more responsible to say, yeah, I think he doesn't have this, or he does have this, because once you sign a contract, you're kind of stuck, you know, and they'll always refer back to the proposal and say, listen, we didn't have this included, so don't ever expect that there's a full set of drawings, and then when you have a contract that it's going to be that he's going to have everything included. They're going to want to make money, so they'll try and, you know, take that opportunity to give you a change order. So the more careful you are with choosing a contractor, the better. Yeah, just change order also, you know, change order. Change order is basically a change to the contract scope. So if you're adding something, you've changed your design, something's come up, or there's an item that he's excluded in his proposal, but you want him to do after you sign the contract, that's when they'll give you a change order. And a change order will have an amount, you know, that's extra money you have to pay on top of the original contract sum. So obviously the less change orders, the better. And also the change order is also, they're able to add time to the schedule with the change orders. So more time, more money. I guess you've done all this, what we talked about, and now you've selected a contractor, and you're ready to start building a restaurant. So I guess that is where we'll leave it for now, and I'll try and get out another video that explains more of the construction process, and how whatever little tips can help you. But basically, when it comes to the construction, you know, your work, the decision making, all of that begins for you, ends when they start construction. You know, all of these decisions and all these things that we've talked about have to be done, are done before you start construction. And then once it starts construction, you're like, you know, you're a passenger, you know. So all these decisions, and you don't think you're making a decision, but all of these vast amount of information, like that come from the architect or come from the contractor, you always end up signing. So you're always responsible for it, because they say, well, I don't know if I approved that. Well, yeah, you did. You signed a contract, or you signed off on the drawings from the architect. So, you know, so it's better that you take your time and don't try and rush it. And yeah, that's it. So I'll leave it from there. I'll leave it at that, and I'll try and make another video again soon. Okay, thank you. Bye.